big difference that I see between Norway and Canada is that in Norway, the country is managed for the people, and in Canada, the country is managed for corporations. Let me tell you what I mean by that. In the 1950s and 1960s, Norway discovered they had huge offshore oil reserves. So they did something that was pretty unique. They set up an oil development fund specifically for the people of Norway. Now, initially, the big oil companies didn't want to play by the rules that the Norwegian government had set up, but eventually they came around to it. And of course, the results of this is that Norway is sitting on a huge pension fund for its citizen, which is well over $200,000 per citizen. And Canada is running huge deficits, which is resulting in generational debt for families in Canada. How they've managed their social programs with their oil revenues, in my mind, is nothing short of amazing. The first thing they did was eliminate poverty. Now, by eliminating poverty, they've also dropped crime rates. What you have when you have extreme poverty like we have on our First Nations reserves, when you have extreme inner city poverty, it just breeds crime. Desperate people do desperate things. The Norwegian approach has been socially successful. It's an amazing story of managing a country for people and putting people first in a country. And I understand people want to compare Canada to Norway, and really there is no comparison. Not only do we have oil, we're the 5th largest oil producer in the world. We have the 15th largest GDP, gross domestic product, 15th largest. There's only 35 million people in Canada. This also doesn't count gold mines, the largest potash reserves in the world, uranium. When you look at the amount of resources that Canada is exploiting, and you look at what the tax structure is for the average Canadian and how the corporations are being taxed, it's obscene. For the first time in history, personal income taxes account for over 50% of the federal government revenue. And corporate taxes account for 14% of federal revenues. And that big sucking sound that you hear in Canada are our natural resources being wholesaled out to the rest of the world with very little benefit to the average Canadian. And what the politicians are telling us is that this is somehow good for Canada. If you look at the Norwegian model, I would say just hand Canada over to Norway and let them manage it, because the people of Canada, our resources, our generational wealth is being squandered by our political class. Why would you exploit Canada's resources in this manner unless governments are in the hip pocket of the fossil fuel industry? Let me give you a little example of this. In Norway, they've averaged $78 a barrel in royalties. During that same period, Alaska averaged about $38, and Alberta averaged $4.36 during the same time period. Also during that time period, the last 5 or 6 years, Alberta conveniently forgot to collect about $13.5 billion in oil taxation that they were owed. Oil resources, a limited resource, and hopefully a resource that we are trying to get off of, but that could fund Canada's future, is being wholesaled, is being ruthlessly exploited, and with little or no benefit for the average Canadian. While I was traveling around here, there was a bit of a major scandal in Norway with some politicians accepting some gifts that they hadn't declared. Now, these gifts that they hadn't declared were 3 politicians accepted 3 bottles of wine valued at $150 per bottle. During the same time period, the Canadian Prime Minister awarded an $85 million contract for an Arctic research station to a party insider. The corruption in Canada's political system is built into the system. You can compare it to any banana republic in the world. The party insiders, the people that finance parties, expect to be given lucrative contracts. The ridings of cabinet ministers expect to have very expensive public works money poured into their riding. And when the Prime Minister of Canada can go around awarding huge multi-million-dollar contracts to his political friends, tell me how that's any different than bribing some official in a third world country. Our bribery, our corruption is built right into the Canadian political system. I'm Alan Finney, and thanks for watching.